Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Lenz VO podcast. My name is Mike Lenz. I'm an entrepreneur and a full-time professional voice actor and audiobook narrator. My goal is to share with you stories from some of the most amazing and inspiring people from all areas of the voiceover industry to help you achieve your dream of becoming a professional voice actor. So please leave me a review over on iTunes and join us over on the web at mikelenzvopodcast.com to be notified of each episode when it comes out. Now, get ready to be inspired. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Mike Lenz VO podcast. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to remind any audiobook narrators out there who are listening about my monthly audiobook narrator workouts. I limit these to only 5 participants per workout, so we can do a deep dive into each narrator's piece. Each participant brings a 2 to 3 minute audiobook piece to work on. You perform, and you receive feedback from me and also from all the other members of the workout. It's an hour and a half, and it's a great opportunity to hone your audiobook narration chops. It's open to all experience levels. We've had people on the workout that have had no titles to people who have had hundreds of titles. So it doesn't matter what experience level you're at. It's a safe space for you to share with others and level up your talent. We meet over Zoom, and if you want to be added to my mailing list, just drop me a line at mlenzvoice@gmail.com. Mail list subscribers get first dibs on the spots before I announce the workouts on social media, and they do fill up quickly, so if you're interested, let me know. Also, be sure to give me a follow over on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn if you haven't already. I talk all about my journey in the VO and audiobook industry on my social media, and I'd love to connect with you there. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to my Substack, where I post a new article every Friday that you can read for free. All right, my guest today is Donna Frank, an accomplished voice actor, audiobook narrator, and longtime radio imaging talent whose voice has been heard by millions. Many listeners know Donna as the imaging voice behind The Howard Stern Show, a role that helped establish her as one of the most respected voices in the industry. Over the course of her career, she's worked across multiple genres of voiceover behind the microphone, and today we'll talk about her journey, the evolution of the voiceover business, and what it really takes to build a successful and sustainable career in this industry. Donna, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored you asked.
We've realized this over the years that we've connected on social media that we don't live that far away from each other. We're probably like half hour away from each other, but this is the first time we've had a chance to talk face to face, even if it's virtually, which is really awesome. Nice to finally meet you, see your face in person.
I always feel, because I live out in the country, kind of, and I always feel like I'm like this island of like voiceover where there's nobody around me doing what I do. And then to find out somebody's so close made me feel so good.
I know.
I'd
It is.
love
It
to
is
get
nice.
together and bounce things off of you and talk about things, and it's just really great.
Yeah, I don't think this will be the last time we'll talk for sure. This is great, but I'm glad you're here. So let's start by just discussing your journey. How did you first discover voiceover, and what drew you to the microphone?
Well, I grew up with the best voice talent of all time. My father was amazing. He was actually the first country music DJ in New York State. He was an engineer, so I grew up around a lot of radio equipment and just listening to my dad on the radio and watching him on TV. Actually, he would host things, telethons, and would host shows at Proctor's and stuff. So he was just a real sort of hero figure. And I always knew I would be in the media. It's the only thing that was ever interesting to me. So when I got out of college, my first job in radio was for WGY, and I love news radio. That was a passion too. And then I just tended to sort of follow my heart career-wise. I was driving around one day and I heard EQX on the radio, and they were playing the Wallflowers One Headlight, and I was like, I don't know why, but I need to be there. So I quit my full-time awesome job, which I loved in Albany, but I just really needed to be at EQX. I was just a beacon. So I made them hire me. They hired me for like overnights at like $5.50 an hour. And I was waitressing and doing writing and doing anything I could to just sustain myself in radio. And then I just sort of got better at it, and eventually ended up hosting the morning show there with Pete Powers. And that was one of the best times of my life. I really loved hosting the morning show. And I still am with EQX, and I think it's like oh God, this makes me seem old, but like 25 years later, I'm still the voice of the station and I love them desperately and they know that. And it's just been a real, I've been with EQX longer than like any relationship I've ever had, anything. And it's longer than any kid I've ever had. I mean,
That's
it's
funny.
just been a big thing in my life. So I do love radio.
I mean, for those of us who live in this area, WEQX is like just, we all grew up with that. That was the station to listen to, at least for me anyway. So yeah, a lot of fun memories. And WGY too. I mean, that goes back to childhood. You just remember WGY was the place, the radio station. So,
Waiting to see if your school would be
oh
closed.
yeah, that's where you had to check in with
Ichabod Crane
WGY.
always was closed.
Always
Every
Ichabod Crane. Oh,
snowstorm, they closed right up.
and as the son of a small business owner in Saratoga Springs growing up, who owned a pharmacy and the building that the pharmacy was in, that happened to be on a hill, Donna, Lake Avenue in Saratoga Springs. But when there were snow days, I had to go walk down to the pharmacy and spend all day there shoveling
Oh, so
because
you
my
never had a snow day as a
'cause-
kid. They were
no,
just weekends.
so my father didn't want to pay somebody to shovel. He's like, I got a couple of strapping young boys. You guys are going to come down with me. So we'd have to walk down, and I'd get home later than the school I would have gotten home if there was school. So
Well, look
I
at the work
hated
ethic
snow
that
days.
gave you. Yeah,
I
but no,
know.
you got a great work ethic now
Made me
from
a
that.
stronger person, physically and mentally. It made me a stronger person. This has nothing to do with voiceover, but I think it's an important point. So radio was important, obviously. Clearly, that's what brought your dad being involved and then radio early in your career. What were some of the biggest lessons you learned in those early years that you've kind of carried with you throughout your career?
Well, if you are going to put yourself out there, and this is carried through to audiobooks as well, you know, if you want sort of that attention, if you're going to put yourself out there in front of everyone and just be like, don't you guys love me? That's not the way the universe works. Yeah, you're going to get people who love you, but not everyone's going to love you.
Hmm.
And if I could get 100 great emails saying I love you, and then I get one being like, you're not that great, and you would spend weeks worrying and wondering about the one person who didn't like you or whatever. And that can be true, I think, with any kind of public work we're doing, and audiobooks is could not be more public. And I've definitely learned to be my own sort of critic. I know when I've done something good, and I know when I haven't, and I really can't let other opinions um, affect me that way. That's something I didn't know at the beginning.
Yeah.
I just a little bit of criticism will kill me. So I come from a place where I want everything I put out to be absolute magic, perfect. I do want you to love it when you hear it. I want to affect you. I want to touch you. But I'm the only person who will make that determination. And I don't need any help with being critical. I can handle that.
We can
Um,
take care of being self-critical. Yeah.
yeah, so that's one thing. You really just have to be strong and be your own honest critic. I think you always have to be the hardest working person in the room. I'm probably a workaholic, but it's what makes me happy. If you want to succeed in such a competitive business like this, you better love working, you know? And I think I learned that right away because I got good response from working hard. To think of other lessons. I think you got to be cool to work with.
Hmm.
You can't be a pain in the butt. You have to be a solution to people. People like working with someone cool instead of like someone sends me copy now and I'm like, geez, I don't really know how to pronounce that artist's name or that person. I don't go ask for help. I go figure it out for them and then I send them the correct whatever. I think you have to be as easy as you can to work with.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I've heard people say, you've heard this, I'm sure, from people who've reached out to you, but I hear of a lot of people that reach out to me saying, I have a really good voice, or I like to read to my kids at night, and I think maybe I should narrate audiobooks, which is great. It's really nice to have a good voice, but I always tell people, look, that is by far the least important aspect of this profession. You've got to be able to as you do every day, read words on a piece of paper and interpret them properly and make it sound like you're not reading words on a piece of paper. Because if you can't do that, having a good voice doesn't really matter, right? If you if you're not
Right.
able to do those things, interpret copy, take direction, be easy to work with, uh, be a hard worker, be dedicated, always trying to get better at your craft,
Hmm.
you can have a good voice and it won't matter. And I think we've seen that many times I've seen it in my career where people that have a good voice and can interpret copy, they're not successful.
Hmm. And on that point, I will say it was very humbling for me to come from voiceover where I felt like I had had a good amount of success, and then to come into audiobooks. And all of a sudden, it didn't matter that I had a nice voice the amount of work that goes into an audiobook. And the problem I struggled with at the beginning, especially, is the technical part of it. It's very different. I've been a production director, but audiobooks are their own thing altogether.
Hmm.
Um, and you spend so much time sort of worrying about the levels and this and that, that like it's hard to get the acting part of it out
Hmm.
at the beginning. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like I feel like I'm finally just getting to the point where I'm not so stressed about, I know the audio is going to be okay now. I didn't at the beginning. So now I feel like I'm just coming into my own, letting myself really be the character.
Yeah, it's a. I want to dive into some audiobook stuff shortly, but that's absolutely a big piece of it. The people I coach and mentor, that's the biggest piece for them is getting over that hurdle of understanding what what the levels should be and the dB and the RMS and what room tone should be, and they struggle with that, and a lot of times it will keep them from doing the audition because they're
Yeah.
just too afraid that they're not going to get it technically correct. So that's an important aspect for sure. But we want to talk about that shortly, but I do want to not gloss over the fact that what I said in the intro, that you have been the imaging voice behind the Howard Stern show for,
Yeah.
you're going to tell me how many years, but how did that happen and what has that experience meant to you personally as well as professionally?
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Um, First of all, I've been with Howard since 2013, I think, or I've been there over 10 years. I have been treated so well by them. Um, to go back to how I got hired, this is where I go back to saying you have to follow your heart. You have to be easy to work with. I had done some work for someone for an imaging station, imaging for a radio station. I think it was in San Diego, and it was a real sexy voice. And the person who had given me that job came to me and said, Howard, they want to add on. At that point, they had a male voice and a female voice that had an English accent or something. Didn't quite fit anymore with the show. They said they want to add on a sexy voice. They don't have a budget for it. I'm like, okay. Um, will you audition at least knowing this? And I said, of course, grew up, I actually, when I did radio at EQX, Howard was like our competition. I say who's going to compete with Howard? But people would, at least we would know when Howard was going into that long, like 13-minute commercial break. And then we were like, okay, let's do our funny stuff. Well, we knew it because people would turn the station. But
Right.
going back to Howard, so I did audition. They said, we love your voice, but we have no money to add someone on. Would you be willing to do it for free for a little while and then sort of just make yourself like so they can't walk away from you?
Hmm.
So I did. I started off doing that show for free, which is funny because it's like the show does pretty well.
Pretty well now. Yeah. Hmm.
And then like a month or two later, they hired me. And then they've like even given me raises without me asking. And I've just been treated so well by that show. Um, but it's to the point where like from a voiceover perspective, from a female imaging voiceover perspective, where do you go from there? Like it's for me, it's the top, you know? Um, there's not going to be a show like Howard Stern ever again. I mean, there will be big shows in the future and everything, but Howard is the one who put Sirius on the map. He's the one who just did so much for radio. So I will go to my grave happy and just I feel so fulfilled by that. Um, so that show's been a lot to me.
Yeah, sure.
Um, I don't know how much longer it's going to go on, but every time the contract negotiations come on, I'm like, please, can we go a couple
Please.
more years? Please keep me. And they do. And it's been great. So usually when people hear that, though, it's easy to get pigeonholed as a sexy voice. And the voice I do for Howard started off very sexy. If you listen now, they've sort of let me graduate to a where I'm not just leaning on that for the
Hmm.
work. It's just a more upbeat voice. It just is actually more me. It's a more honest voice, and I got to grow up professionally with the show. The show isn't so sexual maybe as it once was.
Right.
So again, it's just been a fantastic experience. I find that the bigger a client is, almost always they're easier to work with. Do you find that?
Hmm. I
You know?
do. Yeah, I do. Because unfortunately, well, I think the bigger the client, the more understanding of the industry that they have. The smaller the client, especially in the audiobook world, somebody who's an indie author that doesn't really understand how things need to be done, they require a lot more handholding, and they may
Hmm.
be have more questions, and they kind of don't let you have that free reign to go do what you do well. So from that perspective, I think that's true. And they kind of know, like you said, they kind of know the industry, and they appreciate the value that you bring to their show, And
Hmm.
I mean, Howard was such a trailblazer. I even remember when he went over to Sirius, people were like, "What is he doing? He's going to ruin his show. He's getting off radio." And
Well, we were like, nobody's going to pay to have a radio in a car. And here
right,
we all are. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
It
we're
was,
we're paying all over the place. We're paying for Pandora and Spotify and Sirius, and everybody's paying for everything now.
yep, exactly. I've always been very careful to, because of the gratitude I have towards the show, to never try to capitalize on that. I've never once gone out there billing myself as the Howard Stern voice or, Howard's imaging girl or anything like that. I just have too much respect. I also don't think that the show likes when people try and, I don't know, climb off the show or what the right expression is.
Yeah,
Um, but I've just held it in reverence, just like all of the clients that I've had that I love. EQX I hold in absolute reverence, and I love my Move Radio in Canada and just so many of my stations. I think you have to it's about loving what you do and doing what you love. Like I really do have love for all of them. And I really do have, I don't have like a CHR voice and a sexy voice and a rock radio voice. All my stations have their own babies, their own personality. It's a different girl for each station because I feel like that's what they deserve.
the difference between radio imaging and the commercial voiceover world, how does that differ? Because you do, as you mentioned, other radio imaging for shows other than Howard's show. So that's been a big part of your career as well, I assume. So what's that like in terms of how you prepare for that and how you perform those pieces versus commercial work? Same, different?
Um, it's a longer term relationship with my radio stations. Like we'll have like an annual contract or a contract that's for like 2 years. Or so we're working together every day and we're growing a sound and we are creating an image for your morning show or just the whole station or whatever it is. So in that perspective, we grow together as a family. We build something. I have some of the producers are some of my best friends at some of the radio stations because we work together all day, back and forth with email. And that's my day from 9 to 5. I'm in the studio and I just get it and I put it back. And um, it's different with commercial radio or with commercials, which is what I assume you're talking about, like
Yeah.
radio TV commercials.
Hmm.
Um, those are fun because, first of all, they pay well. and when you get them, and then you can tie it up with a bow when you're all done, and you're like, this is my, product for whoever. And that lets me do different things that, imaging really is imaging all the time. Doing commercials is fun to have like a product that you're promoting, and it's just maybe it's a Christmas sale or something like that. Um, and I like TV. I like when I've gotten a few TV gigs that, you're like, oh my God, there's me,
I know, right?
Or when like your kids see it on TV, they're like, is that you?
Gather around, everybody. Here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm such a jerk. I'm like, shut up, everyone.
Oh, of course. We have to hear that.
Well, and I feel like commercial work too, you definitely need, at least in my case, I needed an agent to get that work. It's a lot. You can probably get imaging work just by, when I first started, I was just literally sending my demo via email and be like, please listen to it. Maybe I'd be good for you.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know that commercial really works that way nationally anymore, maybe locally. But it was my agent and my agent now who gets me any work like that. I'm interested what you think about agents in audiobooks
Hmm.
because I my agent represents people in audiobooks, but I haven't asked them yet. I don't know if they're going to listen to this. Um, if if they even, I don't know if I have enough experience yet to have an audiobook agent. What do you think? What's your opinion of agents?
In my experience, I do not have an audiobook agent. I have an agent for commercials, but I do not have an agent for audiobooks. It depends on what relationship you have and what business association you develop with your agent. Um,
Mm,
because I like to have the freedom to be able to, just like you said with radio imaging, I have relationships with a lot of publishers and producers now that I have developed myself over the years
mhm,
that allows me to get quite a bit of audiobook work on a consistent basis. So for me, I like that being able to develop those personal relationships myself. I'm good at it because I've been doing it for a long time. So I understand the industry and I understand what they need and how to communicate with them. So it's not that I don't need an agent. It's just that I'm not sure what that agent would bring to me. And it would depend on what they would bring to me now at this point in my career would determine whether I think that would be a wise relationship to develop, if that makes sense.
mm. Interesting.
So it's probably worth a conversation to see what that means, right? Are you going to be
Right.
able to, can they only go through your agent, any audiobook that you get?
I kind of want to just, and that's where I'm at, like with audiobooks right now too. They are, I only sort of want to do, now that I've gotten the engineering part of it down,
Hmm.
um, I only want to do like passion projects. Like I only want to do it if I'm like in love with a book. Um, which is good and it's bad because if I love something and then I don't get picked, then I'm brokenhearted. But I'm only trying for things right now that I am just in love with.
Yeah. And I think it's good to be able to be in that place. And so the, it's interesting because you and I are almost flip-flopped, I think, in terms of career, because what I loved about what you said about radio imaging is about developing those relationships with your client that you're going to maintain and nurture over the years. Voiceover for commercials is almost like you zip in, you get it done, and you zip out, right? So it's a kind of a one and done, unless you get a commercial which is long running and you become like the voice of that commercial, which is obviously the ideal. But it's a whole different ballgame in terms of how you develop those relationships and maintain them. For me, the audiobooks is my bread and butter. So I'm usually booked out 2 to 3 months in advance. I have, as I said, developed relationships with a lot of different producers and publishers, and I continue to do that every day because those relationships are what bring me more work. And I love collaborating and knowing that they can count on me to deliver what they want. And then
Mhm.
commercial work, corporate video work, e-learning work, that's the icing on the cake for me. When I get those projects, it's like, great. As you said, commercial work pays really well for the amount of time that you have to spend doing it. Um, you're in a position where it sounds to me like, correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of the work you're doing or kind of your foundation is the radio imaging work,
Mhm.
commercial work, and now you're recently have delved into the audiobook world, and you have the luxury of kind of having that base, and you can go and say, okay, I'm going to go work on this audiobook because this is important to me, as opposed
Mhm.
to I'm just trying to get as many audiobooks as I can. Is that an
Yeah,
accurate?
it almost one like 99% accurate. Here's the one thing that's not. So I during COVID, when the whole world stopped and we were all like, what are
Yeah.
we gonna have jobs next week? You know what I mean? So I had time on my hands, and again, as like a workaholic, I did not know how to deal with that. And I'm like, I guess I'll try an audiobook. Maybe that would be something I would like. I'd always wanted to do it, but it just seemed like a lot of work to learn.
Hmm.
So during COVID, I did an audiobook. It was my first one. And again, talk about humbling. It was, had no idea how much work they actually were from start to finish to get an audiobook done. But I did it and I loved it. And it probably wasn't great, but it was okay, you know? Um, and I was like, I really liked that once I was done. I really liked being like, I did this cool thing that's out there.
Hmm.
And it's out there forever, unlike imaging, which will go away someday,
Right.
you know? Um, and then the world started up again and I got busy again. And it just seemed, when am I ever going to have time to do that? And it started to really eat at me the past year or two. And I'm like, I really want to do that. I think I'd be good at it. And I listen to audiobooks and podcasts and stuff, and they're so important to me. And I was like, you know what? I don't have the time for it, but I am going to make the time for it this year. So this year I started doing them again, and it's been paying off, and it's been a lot of fun and fulfilling. And again, I like the idea that we're putting things out there that would be there, forever.
Hmm.
And whether we have royalty share for 7 years or not, it's just the products out there forever. Um, and it's funny because I remember when I first had kids, I was like, you start to sort of see yourself as a grown up forever. And I was like, God, I wish I was something more admirable. I wish I was a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or something that my kids could really look up to. But then I started thinking about the fact that, like, what do I do when I'm in a bad mood? What do I do when I want to go running and I need something to listen to? And you know what? There's something to be said for entertainment and the joy we bring to people's lives, whether it's through a funny radio show or an audiobook or a podcast. What is actually more important than feeding the soul with something like that? So I have started to really have pride in what I have done with my career. And now I want to not end my career, but I want to do some big important books that either make you laugh or just something to do while you're making the salad for dinner that just makes your life more fun. um, I really think that what we're doing is just as important as what everybody else is doing. There's
Mm,
something to be said for joy in your life, and I think that we provide that,
I love
hopefully.
that. Yeah. And I think one of the most important things that we can do as parents is love what we do for a living.
Yeah.
There were times in my career where, previous to voiceover, where I wasn't happy. I was under a lot of stress, and children can pick up on that really, really easily. And one of the biggest joys for me is several of my kids, really all of them at one point or another, but the two oldest ones have said recently a couple of times, I wish I was doing what dad was doing. Not that they want to be voice actors, but they wish they were doing something with their career and their life that made them as happy with the work that they do as I am with the work that I do.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry. That's awesome.
I know. So I mean, it doesn't matter really what you're doing. I think that it's what your children's perception and reality of what they
Hmm.
see in you as a person is the most fulfilling thing for me.
Hmm.
That they
That's
see that
awesome.
that I'm traveling a path that I want to travel. There's this quote that I love. Hopefully, I can remember it accurately, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive. Because what the world really needs is more people who are truly alive.
That's great. That's so true.
That's been a North Star for me in this part of my life. And the fact that my kids can see that, that just makes me so happy.
Mhm. Have your kids listened to any of your audiobooks?
I'd like to say yes, but the vast majority of them, they're not interested in. But they
Yeah.
do appreciate, what I've done. And if I've done a commercial that's been on TV or the radio, they get a kick out of that. And
Mm.
their friends, they get a kick out of their friends getting a kick out of it. I heard your dad on Pandora. I heard your dad on Spotify. Or I heard your dad on TV. Or I heard your dad on the radio. They get such a kick out of that because they'll come home and tell me. But anyway, well, let's talk a little bit more about audiobooks. And what I was thinking when you were talking about it was that the joy of audiobook work is that longer form, the time you get to take as an artist to create that story, whether it's 4 hours
Mhm.
or 10 hours or 20 hours, when you create that finished project, it is so rewarding because you've put so much into it and because it's like a real thing. It's like a woodworker who takes all this time to create a beautiful carving of a duck that will sit on somebody's mantle forever. The joy
Mhm.
that you get, even though it took you a lot of time, the time doesn't matter. It's the product, it's creating, it's pouring yourself into that art form that I think is so rewarding. Now, some people can't handle it, right? They can't go into a studio, into a closet and talk for 3 hours a day. I get it. Some of my best friends are like, I can't do long form. I'd love to. My brain just isn't wired that way. But if it's wired that way, man, is it rewarding.
It's been a challenge for me because with the kind of radio I did, like I said, I sit in the studio all day, but everybody who needs something needs it today. And then we're done. So this was like, it still feels weird to me to have something due. It's not going to be done yet. You know what I mean? It's not due for 3 weeks or whatever. Like I'm still adjusting to that. That's kind of stressful for me. And I guess the way you just described it is the way that you have to get through the stress of that. Like you're building this chair or whatever piece by piece eh, but it's hard.
It
I'm
does
not
require
used to this.
patience. It does require
Yeah,
patience. That's for sure.
100%.
Where are you? Are you on ACX
I'm on
auditioning? Is that, yeah.
ATX. Yep. Um, and I've just been like sort of cherry picking. Like I had talked to you, I got picked for something and the person wanted a duo, which I'm not really part of, and I don't know how to be part of one or how to just, it feels like you're just I don't know, it's a weird, but it's so in right now with audiobooks, dual narration. Um, so I'm out there looking for a duo partner.
So in many books, but certainly in the romance genre, but there are other genres that do this as well. There's what's called dual narration, and there's duet narration. So dual is where one chapter is from the male perspective, if it's male, female, and the other chapter is from the female perspective. So each voice actor, narrator has their own chapters to do in the book, but it's combined, but it's chapter by chapter. So in your chapter, you're doing all the male and female voices. In the female chapter, they're doing all the female and male voices. And you have to coordinate together so at least you have an idea how each is performing that character. And
Mm.
so that's dual. Duet is a much trickier world because now you're recording together and reading your lines and the other characters reading their lines at the same time, in conjunction, I should say. So you have to be
Mhm.
recording together in your studios, separate studios, but you have to be on a call like this and recording on your own. And that is very, very tricky and very complicated and
And time consuming, I'd assume.
much, much more time consuming.
The whole dual narration thing is attractive to me in a way, but so far, all the books I've done, and to backtrack, when I said I used to come up with a voice for all my different radio stations, and I still do, they were always female. Um, Now I've done the past three books I've done have been back and forth, male point of view, female point of view, and I've had to do male voices for entire chapters,
Mm.
which is difficult. that was something that when I first did it, I was like, I'll just do it in a lower register. That'll pass, right? Nope. You got to be a guy for a chapter. It has to be believable. You just have to put yourself into that that's your space. And it took
Hmm.
me a couple tries to figure out that, like, no, you got to really act here. You have to be a guy. So that is something that I've had to hone. I mean,
Yeah.
do you find it's got to be hard for you to do a female voice?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, what I've developed over the years and from coaching that I've done is that the most important thing for me to tap into, and I think one of the most difficult things for people to do, is to understand the emotion underneath the lines. And usually,
Hmm.
if you can get the emotion, if you know what's going on emotionally, the words will take care of themselves. And yes, obviously, you have to develop that character, but people don't want to necessarily be thinking in their head, oh, Mike's trying to sound like a female or Donna's
Right.
trying to sound like a male.
Hmm.
I think that people are less concerned with whether it sounds female enough or male enough versus what is that character feeling. And so I don't worry too much about going too high in a register or that type of thing. It's more about pacing, cadence, how slow or how
Hmm.
fast they're speaking. And but trying to understand the emotion is the biggest challenge, I think, for most narrators, because we get caught in that trap of reading those words, just wanting to get the words read as opposed to understand the emotion. One of my coaches, PJ Oakland, taught me, uh, don't tell me a story, feel me a story.
Yes.
If you understand the emotion, you can almost never go wrong. And I think that's a struggle for a lot of narrators, especially new narrators.
Or people like me who have come from voiceover, where we're like, hey, I've got a pretty good voice. You want to hear a story? And it's not about you telling a story. It's about you bringing the story to life, about being the story, about just if the person closes their eyes, they forget that Donna Frank exists and they just hear the story. It was a little bit the last book I did. Um, my main character was blind. So that added a different element. And I feel like that was like, that broke through something for me because I literally had to sort of not just pretend to be Violet, but I had to be a blind person.
Hmm.
And it really added a different sensory aspect to it. And it made things really click for me.
Yeah. I remember, again, this is somewhat off topic, but I remember from Scent of a Woman when Al Pacino played the main character. He was an older man and he was blind. And people were like,
Mm,
how did you do that? And because really did a great job of appearing blind in the film. And
yeah.
he said that he basically would spend his day looking out his peripheral vision all the time, like trying to look peripherally all the time instead of looking directly at what he was supposed to be focusing on. And that kind of got him into that zone of being blind without actually being blind. So,
Well, I would have loved to have been able to close my eyes, but I wouldn't have been able to see the copy. What I was doing though,
right.
like at night, I was like, I wonder if I could brush my teeth with my eyes closed. Like, it sounds crazy, but like, it's so hard. Or I wonder if I could just walk to that side of the room without hitting something. And it definitely gave me such empathy for the character that I think it made me read her better.
Mm, I believe that. You've got to be willing to commit to the character. You got to
Yes.
be willing to commit to that emotion in order for it to be truly believable. And getting
Hmm.
back to what you said way early in the show about not worrying about people that might be critical of what you do
Hmm.
is that we get reviews, right? We get reviews on
Yeah.
Audible, and there are people in the industry that are called the golden voices. There's about 35 to 40 of them who are considered to be the best of the best in the audiobook industry. And if you want to understand how subjective art is, you should go pick one of those people, go find one of their books and read their reviews. And inevitably, there are a
Hmm.
handful of people that give them one-star reviews going, I couldn't listen to this guy. He sounds like he's whining the whole time. Like his voice was too low. He mumbles. And this is somebody who's considered in the industry a
Yeah.
golden voice. So You got to take those things with a grain of salt. You've got to do the best job you can do. Some people are going to love it. Some people not so much. And you have to be okay with
I
that.
also think that you have to let go of self-consciousness. And I've learned this from different people in my life. My son, my oldest son is a model. He's been a model. He does a lot of things, but he just has this way where he could have a camera in front of him and he doesn't seem to think he's not like self-conscious or worried about looking stupid. He just is so into it. Um, and that's what I think you have to do for your characters. You have to not worry about who thinks you sound stupid. You have to not worry about just that point of like I know you don't know what it's like to have a baby, but there's about time when you're about to have a baby where you're like the universe is like, you know how hard that's going to be, right? You better do it. And you're like, I didn't believe it was going to be this hard, but here we go. It's the same thing. Like you got to dig deep, be that thing that maybe makes you feel self-conscious or like, God, I hope people don't see this and they're going to think I'm such a clown. Too bad. That's the job. You got to do it. You got to dig as deep as you possibly can.
And that's when the magic happens.
hmm And I'm at the stage now where like if it doesn't feel magic, again, it's not leaving the studio. I've said this before, but sound waves, did you know that they live forever in the universe? They just bounce around. They don't go away. So if
Mm,
you've created a sound, it's out there forever. And my sounds are going to be magic. They have to be.
I love that. What do you think separates people who build careers from those who never quite get traction?
There's probably an inane drive where you just have to do this. I mean, there's also, I don't know that people talk about this, but you do have to commit some money to it. You have to spend some money to make some money.
Hmm.
Some of these things are expensive, be it the software, and there's always the new thing down the road. If it's kind of like, have you ever heard the expression, like, if it's not a yes, it's a no? Like, if you're like, I wonder if I should be a voiceover. I wonder if I should have a child. I wonder if that's the right guy I should date. If it's not a yes, it's a no. You should just know. And and it's okay to try a bunch of things and discover what your no's might be. But when you discover your yes, you're golden. Just put everything you have into that and move it forward, and you will be happy. Trust me, when I quit my job to go work overnights at EQX, everybody thought I was crazy. And it ended up being the best career move I probably ever made.
I know when the first time I was in front of a microphone taking that first lesson, voiceover lesson, I just came home and sat on the floor of our bedroom and my wife, woke up and I just sat there for an hour talking to her, probably longer, just beside myself. Like, I need to do this. I don't know how I'm going to get from here to there, but I'm going to do this. And, I just sometimes shake my head now looking back on my career journey, and I still don't know how I got from there to here. Um, through divine will, it happened. And I think a big part of why it happened was because of that. I
hmm
knew it was a yes.
Yeah.
It
You
just
know
had to
what your
figure out how to
yeses
get
are.
there.
And it works in any situation in life. If it's not a yes, it's a no.
Yeah, no question about it.
My kids always want to listen to my books. But so far, the past couple ones, they've all been romances and they've all had like a smut scene.
Yeah, you're like,
Nothing
ugh.
terrible, but like something you don't want your mom to say. Nobody wants to hear their mom talk about people in love. So
Mm-mm.
I do have a new book coming out that everybody can listen to. I think it's coming out today, actually. I just keep seeing the things come down on ACX.
Hmm.
I have I love, I don't know if you're a problem sleeper. I've always been a problem sleeper. I wake up at 3 a.m. and my mind just goes.
It's always 3 a.m. too.
Why?
Always
Why?
3 a.m.
And you can't do anything really about a problem at 3 a.m., but your mind doesn't get that and it just
Nope.
goes and goes. So, there's apps like the Calm app and Sleepiest, and I love those apps and I've subscribed to them and I use them at night. And but they're like these things you have to pay these annual fees for and everything.
Hmm.
So we created, I worked with a wonderful author, 50 bedtime stories for adults who can't quiet their mind. And they're short, sort of immersive stories you can listen to at night and let me help you fall asleep. And they really do work. It gives your mind something else to do before bed so that it can sort of defibrillate and calm down. So, and then you just buy the book once and you just have it. It's not an app that you have to keep subscribing to. And
Right.
I'm really proud of it. And I love that space. I would love to get more involved in those sort of calming apps. I've got a friend who voices for Calm, and it just seems like the coolest job.
Yes. Very, very cool. A very calming job, I imagine.
Yeah. And since again, it's worked so well with me, like that's sometimes what I need to be able to fall back to sleep. It's nice to be able to provide that service for others. So
Let's end with, if you were sitting across from an aspiring voice actor or narrator or radio imaging, aspiring radio imaging actor, what single piece of advice would you give them? It's always a tough one.
that is a tough one. I guess the most important thing is that you do have to, as I said earlier, just dig deep into it. Get obsessed with it. If you're going to do it, go all the way. Make the commitment of time. You might have to make a money commitment. You might have to um, not worry about what everybody else says. If your heart says go follow it, you gotta, if that's, it's your life, it's your heart. You
Mm.
have to do what's going to make you happy. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You have to, if that's the thing that's going to make you happy, go for it. Um, I've tried to help whenever anybody asks me for help. I try to help in any way I can. I know it's hard to find resources too. Um, there's like books you can buy. I know like Joan Baker had a really good book.
Hmm.
I know you've got classes too, right?
Hmm.
Um, you have to sort of get involved with all of that. You have to, yeah, I guess, like I said, dig deep is just really what I would say, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Dive into the industry, learn as much as you can about it. And that is a huge, huge, important factor in success. So before we wrap up today's episode, where can people find you?
I have a website up, donnafranknarrator.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm just real open about things. Anybody can contact me at any time, and I love to help people out. And I I'm here for you, whatever you guys need.
Awesome. Thank you, Donna. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your journey with my listeners. And I wish you continued success on your journey.
Thank you, Mike. Great to meet you finally.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Mike Lenz VO podcast. Head on over to MikeLenzVOpodcast.com for links and recaps of each show. Catch you next time on the Mike Lenz VO podcast.